Kind of a traditional NDE, love, light, reunion with love, reincarnation was obvious, imparting of some wisdoms and truths, life review, life planning, return. The experience started with an accident. Direct head injury. After the initial life-threatening trauma, days later in the hospital during a period of laser focus on the breath for hours over days, was when the greatest shifts occurred. Then the deeper more fundamental parts happened later that week during the hospital stay when I doubt my life was in present danger. At that point, the catalyst was probably intense pain and an intense focus on the breath for a very long time. I drifted off between breaths into much deeper states of consciousness than I had reached during the NDE itself. This state seemed to seep in during a long period of time rather than in one swoop as the initial NDE had apparently happened. Similar states returned many times over the years following, when I would have to rush to privacy before dropping to my knees in gratitude, tears, and revelation or vision or burning bush quality experiences. They returned full force whenever I was alone in the mountains for years. I had to spend lots of time alone because this other world was so much more real and present than this earthly one for a long time, and I never knew when the state would hit. Not good to be in a grocery store when this happens. People don't get it when you've got tears running down your face and you're staring at your hands as if you just tried them on for the first time. I think many of the states that occurred are described in other questions. I will add one portion here that was not addressed. Between breaths, I simply slipped from one form of consciousness into a much more spacious and connected and powerful one. From this state, I felt honored to keep the body breathing and endure this particular blazing burden. It wasn't suffering, it was fuel. I was filled with the sheer joy and gratitude of experiencing this particular delicious incarnation, this body and personality. This joy of self has returned over and over through the years, at times gracing me with a sense of being blessed at every pleasure and pain of being in the flesh. I believe now that this space of being is our birthright and available in any life, once we let go of our definitions and expectations about what we are. In hospice volunteer situations, I have seen people in what I believe to be this state in their final days and months, talking with long-gone friends and startled by unexpected visions and messages, as the veil slowly becomes more permeable. I don't believe life and death are binary states. Here's what I've gleaned from what was learned during the experience. Learn how to direct your will and energy consciously. The experience of the web of consciousness brought tremendous weight to bear in my own efforts to tame and become aware of the energies I am putting out there. They slip right out and shape consciousness into reality, and if you are fooling yourself about the subtle emotions you're allowing yourself to have, they are still causing ripples in your life. Our self-honest intentions matter more than we know. The way I like to deal with slippery intentions is not to ignore or suppress them, but to be aware, to notice, to fully experience and listen and digest, then to align and transform the energies through genuine personal emotional alchemy, raising the issue up into the light and beaming the emotions out that would instead be healthiest, integrating the experience into myself. I have found that if you can resolve the situation within you, it usually resolves outside of you as well. Because everything is consciousness, anything is possible. There isn't anything you can imagine that can't be, because it's all a play of consciousness. Us included. The further I go along this route, the more strange things I hear and see. Nothing is impossible. As long as life itself goes on, you do too. As long as life itself is, in any form, in any world, in any plane of existence, you go on too. Only the frame for the witness shifts. We go on. We exist as life itself, as divinity itself, and we are the face of God in this world, every single messed up one of us, every single rock and tree. We are God. We are divine. At the same time, we're inherently limited and blemished as humans. Just do the best you can. As a part of divine consciousness, you are divine. I celebrate myself, and sing myself. I exist as I am, that is enough. Walt Whitman. We each have within us the same light that shined within Krishna and Jesus and the Buddha and everyone who's ever carried the torch. We are each divinity's opportunity to experience and create a unique face of life, to allow it to shine right through our inevitable, insufferable flaws. And when that particular life form is done, we recycle back into the ocean, like a wave that dances and melts back in, to reform and experience anew, moving our way higher and higher up the spiral of lessons. Fear nothing, least of all death. To die is different from what anyone supposed, and luckier. Walt Whitman. It's all chosen by you through love. There is always a healing path right through the middle of it. The worst you can imagine, the very worst, may even be rejoiced on the other side, and none of it ever goes unnoticed. You have infinite support available to you, whole worlds cheering for you to weather it well and grow with love so you can come home. Be bold. Joy in incarnation. Your higher self incarnated because as a sensate, embodied being you can have experiences your spirit alone cannot. Don't be afraid of desire. Don't be afraid of passion, of adventure, of a little sin, of failure, of living in your own unique way. Don't be afraid of anything. Life truly is a big play, have fun with it, don't take it so seriously. Life in all its glory goes on, no matter how messy it looks from here and now. Tackle it now. You know that part of yourself you're putting off thinking about. Maybe it's a relationship or habit. The part you know down deep isn't quite lined up with the rest of you. Tackle it now. The pattern's not going to go away without your attention, and eventually, maybe after a few more lives, you will resolve it. Wouldn't it be more pleasant to just do it now and move on up the spiral? Self-healing is your birthright, the key is paying attention. We each have the power to heal with our hands. We each have the power to immerse ourselves in direct communication with nature, receiving revelation and insight. We each have the power to use sexual energy as a sacred transformational force. We each have the power to interact with the subtle energies that make up our bodies and world. We have the power to control our fertility and contraception through communication with our unborn children. Knowing you have the power makes the difference. And practice, because that will bring it into manifestation. Examine your shadow fearlessly, bringing your unconscious energies into new relationship and alignment with the whole. When we can lovingly recognize our dark and light, and respect the information brought to us by our dark, our flaws, our challenges, our pain, we can begin to channel the energies more effectively and put their power to work for us. The macrocosm is the microcosm. As within, so without. Once you decide to recognize the mirror, you will see how to change its reflection. At this time of increased social, political, and environmental change, it is even more important to tend to the fires within. We can make the greatest changes in the world by starting with ourselves. Whenever I have an outward situation catch my attention, like a sprained ankle, or strained relationship, it means it is time to settle and look inward for the cause. There is always an energetic root, and it's an effective place to leverage change. The body always wins. Your body is the temple. Our bodies can often signal the way through a sticky situation. Sometimes it's through a sense of uneasiness in the gut, a sense of yes in the heart, sometimes a tightness in the throat from holding back my own truth. Once you begin decoding it, your body holds infinite information. It is our radar, our antenna, for moment-to-moment guidance through life. And you can try to overrule it at your peril. I see so many people who refuse to listen to their emotions, their physical symptoms, because they are needed in many other directions. They discount the signals their body is giving because deep down they know what it is going to ask them to do and are not ready to face it. So ultimately, the body takes them down with a chronic pain syndrome or disease until they listen and make the changes demanded by the higher spirit working through the body. They can offer self-care early, when it will involve pleasure. Or they can wait to make changes until they're forced to, when it will involve pain. Ultimately, the body always wins because it is the domain of the subconscious. Nourish and cleanse it with food and movement every day, listen to its wisdom, and feel free to negotiate for clearer communication. Practice turning your thoughts higher. To my great surprise, at some point during the near-death experience, the smallness of my last thoughts on earth stood out as one of the few things that would be a shame about my death. Oh, this is going to be a big one. I'm costing us money again. The death itself wouldn't have been much of a loss to the fabric of life itself, but those poor, tiny last thoughts were a loss. It seems like we need to hold the highest state we can, ideally through every moment of life, but at least as we pass through the needle. So I try to practice bringing my emotions to the highest space possible, boundless love, a keening gratitude, joy and peace. Surround yourself with books, music and other art that uplifts you, that brings you to a better self, and practice getting there in an instant. Just in case the mountainside comes at you fast. We are never outside the light. Blessed be those who are cracked, for the cracks are where the light shines through. The veil just makes us think we have dark within us. We may turn away and hide our faces. But the source of all keeps shining on us anyway, waiting for us to look up and notice. Every day I try to remind all the parts of me to let the light stream through despite unending flaws, despite every day still weaving myself through the human impulses that distract from the stronger desire to be in oneness. If you squint just right, ugly turns beautiful. When I think of that primal desire at the root of all others, I picture all of us humans like salmon leaping upstream, each in our own way, choosing our own path, our own thrust, maybe even secretly tiskanji a neighbor salmon's trajectory. We're all after the same thing whether we know it or not. From the sublime artist to the drunk to the emotional manipulator, we are all seeking reunion. Our decisions make their own logic within the context of where we are and what's in our way to get back home, and it's easy to hurt each other by misreading this pure universal desire. Bad things aren't always bad. I believe when we are struck with challenges and suffering and we weather them with the most open heart we can, without blame or recrimination, without grasping, accepting responsibility for all of our own circumstances, we are each claiming a small win for the whole of life. We freely and joyfully chose our family, our flaws, our recurring fights, for our own good. The map is not the territory. For the first 10 years after the accident I had rare words for any of this, and it remained a burning, insanity-producing secret inside of me that I had no way to unlock. It was physically difficult to open my mouth to discuss it. When I first was experiencing these states, not only did my lips not want to move, it can't be put into words, but I couldn't even make the conceptual part of my brain move, it can't be put into concepts. All of me resisted, wanting nothing to disturb the pervading peace. And as soon as a word started in my mind space, even a nice word like truth or love, it diminished the whole. It implied there was something, truth, and so carved part away from the whole, inherently implying that there is also not something, untruth. It is partially for this same reason that for years afterward I had difficulty using the word I, without inwardly grimacing at the lie of it all. There is no I. The sense of I can be shifted to be limitless. It's only a sense of boundary and perspective. So right here, in this very sentence, I'm lying despite my best efforts. Do you see the problem here? How simple questions like, how are you, can become a trap if you're trying to be painstakingly truthful. Not one of those words can be parsed unambiguously. There was no longer a perspective from which to solidly answer innocent questions. 1. Everything we ever need to know comes straight from that one inescapable thing. Call it the Tao, the unity, collective consciousness, or God. Labels only confuse the situation. The map is not the territory. If anything I say doesn't resonate with you, toss it out. You are the only one who can decide truth for yourself. Take nothing at face value, no matter the authority. They may be speaking truth at their level, but only you can decide if it's a paradigm that's useful to you. We are all using the metaphors and perspectives and senses and cultural overlays available to us, and there are hundreds of beautiful books describing similar experiences in modern cultural concepts and terms. Once we break the code of reading metaphorically, most of the world's sacred books can partially be read as deeply informative symbolism for this same living process as it moves through the various layers and energies of a human being's life and body. God is too big to fit inside one religion. Refuse to cling to any definition of what God is. It's certainly not an embodied being or a masculine entity. The systemic imbalance of a single-gender God is absurd on the face of it. Even the word God felt like sacrilege to me for years, like condensing the ultimate force into a shoebox with sides. There were so many cultural projections onto the concept of God, of personification, and my experience was not of God as a separate paternal force. Instead, I interpret this potent word as the underlying, glorious, intelligent, sublimely loving force that simply is, leaping again and again into existence through all of us. By this definition, and by my experience, there is nothing that is not God. Every religion has a branch devoted to the mystical perspective. The Christians have the Gnostics, the Jews the Kabbalists, Muslims the Sufi, Hindi the Jain. I had to reach out to the writings of the mystics and the sacred texts of other cultures, ones who have not separated the body away from the spirit, to understand the process that was beginning to open up in my body electric. I recognize a little inherent kinship with some of the principles of Vajrayana Buddhism, the path of using everything in life, including the dark within us, those things we like to stuff into the shadow, as fuel for burning off the veil. Obsessive reading of archetypal Jungian psychology was crucial in building the dictionary of my own inner messages. But these are labels. Volumes of reading can offer comfort in gaining cultural reference for similar experiences. Reading and sharing help us know we're not alone in our human journey. But ultimately, you must bow only to the Guru within. The Guru is within you. Everything you ever want to know can open up with enough intense focus. A breeze moving a leaf, birdsong at just the right moment, running water, that soft sense of warmth in your heart. It is your birthright to learn how to hear the answers springing from the fabric of life around you. Pay attention. Throw out your books and allow the living spirit to devour you.